Hey guys, Dustin here. Welcome back to another Horroritis. So today we are talking about Mayhem, directed by Joe Lynch and starring Steven Yeun. As always, I will try to give a brief rundown of the synopsis and then we'll jump into some spoilers. So here we go. So in this movie, Steven Yeun is a lawyer and works for a law firm who handles like giant corporate clients. He gets to work one day and basically finds out that he's being framed for a massive screw up for one of the bigger clients, and he is basically the one that they've chosen to have his head on the chopping block to take responsibility for this mistake, even though he had nothing to do with it. So while all this is happening, a virus is released in the building that essentially erases all inhibitions. So whatever people are feeling, that's what they will act upon. Now, while this virus is circulating and infecting everybody, Derek, played by Steven Yeun, is getting fired. They're trying to make him sign paperwork saying that he takes responsibility, and he decides not to, so of course they escort him out just to get him down to the lobby to basically just chuck him out the door. A SWAT team shows up and quarantines the entire building because they were alerted that there's a virus inside. At that point, some people start to go with their more baser instincts, and one guy that Derek had a minor altercation with at the beginning decides he's going to take out his aggression on Derek by beating his ass in the middle of the lobby. At the exact same time as Derek's getting beaten up, the virus takes hold of him and he decides to fight back and ends up winning the fight. And then he decides he's going to make his way all the way up to the penthouse to the board of directors to argue his case on why he should not be fired and why the whole framing and cover up is complete BS. So while Derek is on his way up to the penthouse of the building to confront the Nine, which is the board of directors, he is sidetracked by one of the CEO's goons, I guess. They drag him off to kind of a side room and start beating him up. So he gets the crap kicked out of him. He's knocked out. And then he wakes up a little bit later in that room with Samara Weaving, who plays Melanie. Melanie is someone whose house is being foreclosed on, and she actually showed up at the firm to try to get them to help her because they represent the bank. Derek is actually the one that she dealt with, and there was nothing he could do for her. At least that's what he told her, because Derek, up until that point, was one of the suits. Instead of helping Melanie, he referred her up to the partner who was in charge of her case. And that partner had her escorted out and was set to have her arrested. But of course, before the cops could get there to take her away, the building was quarantined, so they just kind of chucked her in the same room with Derek. So it's at this point that they decide they're going to put their differences aside and team up, and they're going to fight their way up to the penthouse where Derek can plead his case and Melanie can beat the crap out of the partner that was going to have her arrested. So that takes you right up to where the good stuff starts to happen, and this is where the spoilers come in. From that point on, the movie kind of becomes a bloody quest movie. He has to get to this guy to get his key card in order to get in the elevator, go up to a certain floor to get to this girl and take her key card in order to get back in the elevator, make it up to the penthouse where the Nine are. But at the same time, the Nine have figured out what he's going to do, and of course they're all infected too, so everybody's crazy. And they basically start trying to get people to kill Derek, and basically he just has to end up fighting his way through every room all the way up until he can try to get to the penthouse. This movie has no shortage of blood. It is violent, it is bloody, but it's not over the top. It's actually done really well. It's not like wall to wall action. There's the bits in the middle of the action that kind of slow it down and give you a chance to breathe right before the next big thing comes, so that each event is you're properly prepared for each event, and it has the right impact. Only one part where it felt like it was too low, and that's the scene where Derek and Melanie are basically in this room together trying to figure out what their next move is. And then they start kind of talking about their feelings and crap like that, and then they hook up. But right after that, it goes right back into bloody, violent stuff. So I guess it was okay, but that scene was, I don't know. it didn't feel like it fit the rest of the movie. Aside from that, though, there's really nothing that I can think of that is wrong with this movie. There was one scene where it was kind of like Derek and Melanie squaring off almost against an entire department of people. And, you know, they're holding their own, and I'm thinking in my head, okay, that's pretty much impossible. None of these people, of course, have, like, fight training, or at least, you know, you would think that none of them would have fight training in an office. And so then it would come down purely to numbers. And in that case, you know, the other guys, there were much more of them. It was like, I don't know, 8 against 2 or something like that. So obviously you would think that the 8 would win, but the 2 were holding their own for a while. And it was just as I was thinking, well, you know, that's not realistic. And that's when the 8 actually get the upper hand and start really just beating the crap out of the 2, and they, you know, it's almost like they escape out of that just by pure luck. One of the things I like about this movie especially is, you know, Joe Lynch directed it, and if you know anything about Joe Lynch, he loves his references. This movie is packed full of metal references and references to other movies, and it's actually, this movie is definitely going to take more than 1 or 2 viewings to be able to pick out all the references. But my 3 favorite references that I was able to just pick out, you know, without actually having to try too hard. There's a half-baked reference at one point. There's a Spinal Tap reference at one point. And then closer towards the end, there's a reference to Slave to the Grind, which is Skid Row's first album. And I guess probably their heaviest album before they started doing that power ballad stuff. And then, of course, Joe Lynch himself actually makes an appearance as the IT guy, and he is great. You know, the IT guy is kind of like this pale, nerdy troll dude just kind of locked away in a room, and he's angry because he's the only one, and he's got to fix everybody's computers, and everybody's calling him and belittling him because their computers don't work. So obviously it's his fault, and his character, of course, has developed an attitude towards people, and now that his inhibitions are no longer there, he has absolutely no problem with telling people what he thinks about them. So that character is awesome as well. All in all, this movie was great. Like I said, I can't think of really anything wrong with this movie. I feel like that this movie might not get the audience that it should have. It doesn't seem like it had enough promotion behind it, I guess. And really going into it, I kind of almost felt like this might be like a second-rate Belko experiment, but actually I enjoyed this one a lot more than I enjoyed Belko, even though Belko was actually really good. But this one was it was more fun for me to watch. I really got into this one. It's maybe it was, you know, the metal music sprinkled throughout, or all the references that I was able to catch, or just the fact that, you know, they had a lot more fun just, you know, with the gore and the violence, and yeah, just altogether a really, really good movie. I would recommend this movie for, you know, anybody who likes horror or even just action movies in general. I mean, there's a good amount of blood, but a good amount of action, and just altogether a really, really solid film. So that was my review for Mayhem. Do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments below. Also, any questions, comments, suggestions, whatever, throw those down in the comments as well. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified every time I upload a new video. Still doing 2 videos a week, so there's plenty to watch. All my social media links are in the description below. And that's it. So until next time, I'm Dustin. This was Horroritis, and as always, keep it creepy.
Motorhead.
Oh.
DRI. And early anthrax. That'll till I fucking puke.
All right.